and welcome. You're watching FII. I'm Rishika Barwa. The RBI has imposed a moratorium on the Lakshmi Vilas Bank and drafted a scheme for a merger. Now, a cap of 25,000 rupees has been placed on all withdrawals for a period of a month. That is, from the 16th of November to the 16th of December, all depositors can only withdraw 25,000 rupees from their savings in the bank. However, the RBI has assured depositors at this moment that their interest will be protected. Now, this is the third such bank to be placed under a moratorium after PMC and Yes Bank. So, on FYI today, we are going to look at what this means for depositors. We'll also look at why this happens, what it means for the health of the financial sector, but more importantly, what does this mean for you? Is your money safe, and how can you protect your money? Well, before we delve into the details, let's just break it down for our viewers. What is a bank failure? When is a bank placed under a moratorium? Well, a bank is placed under a moratorium when the bank is unable to raise adequate capital, when the liquidity levels in the bank are really low, and when there are governance issues or lapses or a case of fraud or unexplained transactions that are reported. These are the circumstances under which a bank is placed under a moratorium by the RBI. Now, why has Lakshmi Vilas Bank been placed under a moratorium? This should clear the picture for you. 13,800 crore rupees of outstanding loan as of the financial year 2020. There are 397 crore net loss in just September 2020 versus 347 crore in 2019. The non-performing assets of the Lakshmi Vilas Bank rose from 21.25% to 24.45%. What does non-performing assets essentially means? Bad loans or people who've defaulted on loans. Now, in 2019, there was a bid to merge RBI with a Gurgaon-based Clicks Capital, but it didn't materialize. In September 2019, the RBI put the Lakshmi Vilas Bank under the watch of the central bank. So the RBI had been looking out for this. Now, a 3-member committee was also formed by the RBI after the shareholders voted out 7 directors of the bank. These are all telltale signs of trouble within a particular bank. This, remember, is a private bank that we're talking about. What happens next? This is important. The RBI has now proposed an amalgamation or a merger of the Lakshmi Vilas Bank with the DBS Bank India, which is a subsidiary of the DBS Bank in Singapore. Now, what will happen under this amalgamation? The DBS Bank India is going to come up with 2,500 crore in capital to bring about capital adequacy so that the Lakshmi Vilas Bank can essentially survive. Now, while the RBI put this bank under moratorium, it's also put in a plan in place. But depositors have been affected. This is an extremely uncomfortable situation for several depositors who have their life savings and earnings put into the Lakshmi Vilas Bank. Before we break down the details and talk about how you can keep your money safe, let's just listen in to those voices from the ground. Sam Daniels reports.
5,000 per month is not enough when the house is going through a medical problem. I have a medical problem at home for which I need money. I don't know what is going to happen.
Because they have allowed up to 5 lakh withdrawal for certain categories like medical requirements.
Maybe that will work for us. Let us see.
We have all our deposits accounts everywhere here. Main bank.
What is your worry?
Because we got a lot of fixed deposit worth up to 10 lakhs or something. And we are worried that if something happens, we may not be able to take it. And we just heard that minimum is 25,000 rupees is the limit. So we are worried that suppose we need money, we won't be able to take it.
I didn't withdraw any money. No need to withdraw now itself. But actually what is happening, we have to know, no? So that's what we came to the bank.
Did you receive any SMS or alerts from bank?
No, sir.
I am sure that our deposits and all that are safe here. I do believe that things will get sorted out. And they have assured us that everything will be all right. And I don't feel frightened about it as of now. Because I have account in another 2 banks also. This restriction does not bother me personally.
Right.
But had it been, suppose I were dependent only on this bank, it would have been a very major problem.
Well, I think the big questions that are on everyone's minds at the moment is, what does this moratorium mean for depositors? Is your money really safe? What happens to shareholders? What are the telltale signs of bank failures? What should you really be looking out for? How can you keep your money safe? It has raised several of these questions, and on the broadcast today, we'll seek answers to some of the most basic questions that trouble us at a time when news like this happens. So we have with us Subhash Garg. He's the former Finance Secretary and Executive Director of the World Bank. We also have Ashwini Rana, the founder of Voice of Banking, who's also the former General Secretary of the National Organization of Bank Workers and ex-banker himself. Thank you both very much for being with us. I want to begin by asking the most basic questions on the show today. What does this moratorium mean for depositors? You heard several of those voices. It's an extremely disturbing time. Is their money safe?
You want me to speak first?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Hello. Right. See, the moratorium is the result of the bank not being in a position to have enough money from its lending and cash to pay to the depositors if they call out their deposits. Normally, it's not expected that the depositors would withdraw the money in one go or in large bulk. Usually, there is a pattern where some deposits are withdrawn, new deposits are made. But wherever the bank is in a spot of bother, the tendency for the depositors become that they should withdraw the money from the bank.
Right.
Whereas the bank is not able to get its money from its own borrowers and all. So to avoid that kind of rush and a situation where there is a liquidity mismatch in a bank, the Reserve Bank, which is the regulator of the banks, places the banks under moratorium.
Yes.
That you would be able to withdraw only a limited amount of money for this period of moratorium.
Yes.
So that's a sensible arrangement to do in a situation like this.
But Mr. Garg, before I bring in Ashwini Rana into the conversation, is the depositors' money safe? I think that's the question that is on everyone's mind. Because this moratorium, remember, has been placed only for a period of a month. What happens after? Will the withdrawal limit increase? Or will, if this merger works out, the amalgamation with the DBS Bank, will everything be back to normal?
See, if you go by the fundamentals, the depositors are paid back from the realization from its money lent to its borrower and all. And if the borrowers don't pay full amount, you mentioned the non-performing loans and all. So if suppose for a minute that the bank is to be liquidated or closed today, and of the loans, let us say 15,000 crores, only 5,000 crores come, and the depositors have a deposit of 10,000 crores.
Right.
Now, a bank fundamentally in such a situation cannot pay the depositors.
Right.
Depositors would also have to take a hit. But in our system, we have made an arrangement that the deposits up to a certain amount, which is now 5 lakhs rupees, is safe or is insured by the Deposit Insurance Guarantee Corporation. So everybody's deposit up to 5 lakhs rupees is safe. Right. Rest of the deposit over and above may not, in case the bank gets wound up, right. But the Reserve Bank and the Government of India also has not allowed the banks to be wound up or liquidated.
Right.
In this case also the bank is being merged with another one.
Yes.
So my sense is that the depositors' money will come. But I must mention this. See, every depositor doesn't make similar kind of deposit in every bank.
Right.
You have the bank's deposit in SBI and other public sector banks, where the rate of interest you get is much smaller.
Right.
But sometimes you go for much higher rate of interest in weaker banks.
Yes.
So in principle, not everyone should expect same kind of treatment or protection. But at this moment, all deposits are safe.
At this moment, all deposits are safe. I think that's a very reassuring thing that you've just said. And the fact that under law, all deposits up to 5 lakh are guaranteed safety. They're insured in a certain sense. You made a very interesting point about, rate of interest being a consideration when you pick a bank, and you might end up picking a weaker bank. That's a very interesting point, and we'll talk a little more about that. But I want to sort of, address one question at a time. Narsir Salim also joining us at the moment. Thanks very much for being with us. Ashwini Rana, if I can come to you. We've talked about what the moratorium means for depositors and whether their money is safe. What happens to shareholders?
Definitely, you are right that depositor money is safe, as our Garg has also explained. Regarding shareholders, will depend upon will take place. how the will come and he will pay for the share capital. How they will take the shares or what rate. It will depend upon the deal.
Okay.
Happens. Up to yesterday, there was a rumor, there was a news that RBI is going to permit. There is a conflict between RBI proposal and DBS proposal. So that will depend upon their amalgamation agreement.
Okay.
How much they will pay for the shares.
Right.
It depends upon that agreement and it will how they will pay for the shareholders or per share how much they will pay. If they will pay sufficient amount, shareholders money is safe. Other will they are going to lose a use.
Okay. All right. I think that's a fundamental difference between how depositors are dealt with in this situation and shareholders. A lot will depend on the modalities of this arrangement. Narsal Salim, if I can come to you, I think news like this always makes depositors insecure. Whichever private bank you may have invested in or public sector bank for that matter, what are the telltale signs of bank failure that depositors should watch out for? Are there any telltale signs?
No, absolutely. Good morning, Rishika. Firstly, great to be back on your show. I think, there are very interesting telltales, I must tell you, as a banker. I think, the first and foremost is that you need to be with a bank which is regulated by the RBI fully, right? And when I say that, I'm saying that more from a, broader customer perspective, because there are a lot of cooperative banks, for example. We saw the one that happened beginning of this year, towards the end of last calendar year, pardon me, which was the PMC bank issue, which you saw. That was a cooperative bank. I think one of the few checks that you need to look at when you're looking at choosing a bank is, I think, how regulated and what is the control of the RBI. Like, for example, scheduled commercial banks have full control of the RBI, unlike certain cooperative banks, which is again now changing, I must tell you, as we speak, because RBI has brought in certain changes and addendums there as well. But I think that's the first thing. The second foremost important point is, why that may get a little technical, but any bank which has a very receding capital adequacy ratio, and I'll try to explain this very simply, more with academic inputs. I think capital adequacy ratio, Rishika, is something which every depositor should know. It's basically the ratio at which the bank, RBI, has insured and told every scheduled commercial bank to say that they need to have a minimum threshold of 9% as a ratio. Now, it's a very simple thing. If you're looking at banks as an option, you can talk to your bankers, the ones who are coming and engaging with you, soliciting their services. Come and talk to them and understand that, look, what is the capital adequacy ratio? Now, the capital adequacy ratio is very simple, Rishika. What it states is, what is the amount of own equity, own capital that the bank is putting in on every loan or every loan that has been given out to its customers. And that is a very healthy sign. Now, I must tell you something. Somebody who had been tracking the CAR ratio for Lakshmi Vilas Bank, Rishika, you'll be surprised. For the year ending 1920 financial year, it came down to 0.17%, which basically means that on every 1 rupee loan that Lakshmi Vilas Bank was giving out, it was only contributing 17 paisa, 0.17%. Basically, 17 bips is what we call it, right? So that was a very...
That's a telltale sign.
It's a telltale. The third thing I think very important, Rishika, is that you have to understand, I think one of the panelists did mention at the beginning of your show. Let's look at these numbers, and I've noted these down. As of 31st of March 2020, the bank had a total deposit book of 21,443 crores. But the alarming sign was that the total outstanding of loans was over 13,800 crores. Now, this is not a very healthy sign between your loan book and your deposit book. And that, again, is suggestive of the fact that the bank was obviously in a tailspin situation. And
but
now
Salim,
we've seen...
It's very interesting, because I think the 2 or 3 things that you mentioned, and I think as depositors, when you're choosing a bank, you look at, interest rates, and you look at maybe even proximity, convenience, all of those are things that dominate the discourse. But you're saying that, regulation by RBI, whether it's a cooperative bank, private bank, what are those modalities, and this CAR ratio, this capital adequacy ratio, these are things that one should look at. Now, in terms of transparency, where is this information readily available? If someone is to choose a bank or determine whether the bank that they're currently banking with is safe, where should they go to for this information?
Okay, very interesting question again, Rishika, and more from a customer perspective.
Yes.
I think it's all available as per RBI's guideline.
Okay.
All of these ratios are available on their websites.
Okay.
On the bank's website. So if you go and actually check, and if you look at the section which is under controls and compliance, you will find, because this is public domain information, they need to necessarily publish this. Secondly, I think the other very important point is there's enough available on the public domain from a balance sheet perspective. So if you just go onto any of these public domain search engine sites and you go and search, what could be the KAR ratio, for example, these ratios were publicly available. I also pulled them out. My research team pulled them out for me, and, it's available to all of us. So I think those are very important questions. And unfortunately, Ruchika, the way the last generation banked has changed now. I urge your customers, I urge the viewers to look at these questions and not go purely on solicitation very interesting and very crucial information, something that's so seldom spoken about on national television, but that's the whole purpose of this show. Subhash Garg, if I can come to you. Private versus public banks. This is I think, conversation that a lot of people have had. Where's your money safest? Where would you put your money?
See, the public sector banks have an implicit guarantee of the government of India that they would not be allowed to fail. And that is demonstrated by every time the public sector bank loses money, incurs losses, the government of India comes up and recapitalizes the bank. In last few years, more than 4 lakh crores of capital has been invested in the public sector banks.
Right.
So that is a complete assurance, and that is everyone buys this, and that their money, if they deposit in the public sector bank, is completely safe.
Okay.
When it comes to the private sector banks, that assurance of the government of India doesn't exist.
Right.
The private sector banks, if there is a shortfall in terms of the money owed to the shareholders, to the depositors, and to their bondholders, these are the three principal class of people who contribute money for the banks to lend. Banking is a risky business. Let's all accept it.
Yes.
Whoever you make money by lending money to the borrowers, to industries, to households and all. If they don't pay, if their businesses don't succeed, or there is a fraud or things like that, your money may not come. And if your money may not come and there is a shortfall to pay to the depositors and others, then someone has to bear the loss.
Right.
And in this respect, as the system is, and this has been mentioned very well, the capital adequacy. Capital adequacy is essentially the shareholders bringing money to the bank for absorbing the losses.
Okay. So
in case there are losses.
In a nutshell, if I can simplify this for our viewers, you're saying that in terms of safeguard mechanism, public sector banks have a higher safeguard mechanism as compared to private sector banks. And then it also boils down to, the risk appetite of the investor or the depositor. Ashwini Rana, do you want to weigh in there?
No, but please remember one thing.
Yes.
The fact that the government has to put in money as capital from time to time, this in a way only means that specific depositors' losses have been socialized, have been passed on to the taxpayers.
Right.
Somebody is picking up the bill, somebody is footing the bill.
Yes.
So instead of a specific depositor, the nation as a whole, all the taxpayers together bear that burden.
Okay, that's of course a larger point. But Ashwini Rana, does it boil down to the risk appetite of the depositor?
Definitely, it dilutes the risk of the depositor. But our earlier speaker was also telling that every data is available on our website. But you will find that not a single person is going to a bank for his deposit. Before he deposit, he is viewing the website and he is seeing the health of the bank. They are simply going to the bank for a simple higher rate of interest.
Yes.
It is 0.5%, 1%. In that greed, they lost the money. They are not taking care of the bank health. They are not viewing the website. Simply, they are going for a simple higher rate of interest.
Yes.
For that, they lose the money.
All right. So I think, perhaps a rethink as far as depositors are concerned on what are the parameters, what are the boxes that you need to check. I'm gonna take this opportunity to slip into a very short break. But on the other side, we'll get quick closing comments from all our three guests on what really are the boxes that you must check in order to ensure that your money is safe. We'll be back in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. What are the boxes that you need to check when you go to a bank or decide to put your money in a bank to ensure that your money is safe? Very quickly, Ashwini Rana, the 2 or 3 boxes that you need to check.
From customer point of view, government should start one rating agency for banks.
Okay,
that
a rating
this bank is safe.
Rating agency for banks.
That is simply, and for they should made accountable who has made this happen to be lost to the bank.
All right.
They all, even the auditors, director, they should be made accountable and they should be punished.
Okay. Subhash Garg, very quickly.
See, if you're looking for safety, go for the public sector banks and the strong private sector banks, and there are quite a few. If you're looking for higher returns, then you should be careful about knowing that what kind of portfolio it has, who has planned to, what kind of capital adequacy it has, and things like that. Then you have to be a little more careful in making and choosing the bank.
Okay.
Where you
Nasir Salim, then perhaps the most prudent strategy is to just divide your money between the two. What would you say?
Rishika, I've always maintained this, from a financial perspective, you can't chase returns on fixed deposits. Let's be very, very clear, Rishika.
Right.
In my opinion, if you want to get into chasing returns, you need to choose different asset classes, and that's the way it's always been.
Yes.
From a textbook perspective and from a diversification perspective, but broadly to your clients and to your viewers today, I want to say 2 things. You're looking at an FD. Please go out and see what the state, as a benchmark. In my opinion, you should look at the FD rates compared to what State Bank of India is offering, because that is the largest public sector bank available, and the Apex Bank. And then compare those rates to some of these, bankers who are coming and soliciting FDs to you, to see if there is a very abnormally high rate being offered as compared to State Bank of India in terms of the FD returns. Then there is something amiss. You need to deep dive inside to check what may be going on.
All right. So very important advice there from all the experts on the panel on how you should go about your banking at a time when banks are being placed under moratoriums. Remember, this is the 3rd such story that we're tracking here on NDTV. Thank you all very much for sparing your time and answering our questions so very patiently. I hope this broadcast has been helpful. Thanks for watching.